What if all 4 emperors were at Marineford? This is going to completely change the fate of the One Piece world in a way that Emu, the 5 elders, or even Monkey D. Dragon could have ever imagined in their wildest wet dream. I mean, just try to imagine Whitebeard, Big Mom, Kaido, Shanks, Blackbeard, Luffy, the Admirals, Garp, Sengoku, the Warlords, and the rest all present on the same battlefield. Now, before we get into it, do make sure to like the video and watch to the end because it's about to get more and more insane with each passing minute. But first, let me explain why the 3 great power system is so beneficial to the world government. The goal of this was to make it impossible for someone to rally all the pirates and insurgents of the world against the world government. Think about it, if the 4 emperors are always fighting each other for supremacy in the new world and the warlords are practically working for the government, then how will the world government ever be threatened? They are terrified of the pirates allying themselves with each other. This is why the Kaido and Big Mom alliance was such a big deal, and this is also why Dragon is treated as the world's worst criminal. You see, the 3 great powers are the Marines, the Warlords, and the 4 Emperors. The world government gets to enjoy power all over the world without ever having to do anything. It's the Marines who upheld the 3 great power system. The system was perfect until Dragon came in as a direct threat to the world government itself. But going back to our what if scenario, let's say Whitebeard pulls up to save Ace exactly how he did in the original story. His fleet is with him and he is fully intent on giving up his own life to save Ace. However, the very moment Whitebeard shows up and the war begins is also the same moment when the battle is going to deviate from the original manga. We know that Kaido and King also wanted smoke until Shanks stopped them. Now let's assume that Shanks failed to intercept Kaido, and Kaido's goal is not to kill Whitebeard but to make it the greatest war the world has ever seen. Picture this scenario. The war has already kicked into gear, the admirals are up against the Whitebeard pirates, the warlords are doing their stuff while Whitebeard is wreaking havoc all over the battlefield, and then Kaido is seen up in the clouds. We're talking about a big blue drunk dragon who blasts a borrowed breath within seconds of getting noticed by everyone on the battlefield. King is flying with him and sort of trying to help him sober up. Of course, Kaido's arrival and the borrowed breathing is going to get everyone's attention unlike anything else, and just when Garp is in the middle of telling Sengoku that he'll go manage Kaido, she appears. This is where things are going to reach the no point of return for the world's order, and let me also point out that this is all before Luffy and all of his allies jump into the scene. Now, speaking of Big Mom, she is kind of hungry and in a bad mood, which is why her entrance is going to be exponentially worse than Kaido's borrowed breath. She straight up starts stealing the lifespans of all the Marines and the pirates and goes on a rampage. At this point, most of the Marines and the pirates are cooked. Garp is going to clench his fist because for the first time in multiple decades, Kaido, Big Mom, and Whitebeard are now on the same battlefield. Both Garp and Sengoku finally get up. Sengoku and Aokiji confront Big Mom while Garp and Kizaru go up against Kaido and King. A punch from Garp is then going to send Kaido flying straight into the ground, and yes, it's going to hurt a lot too. But what do you think a sober Kaido is going to say when he looks at the scale of the battle? He'll let out a massive conqueror's hockey outburst while happily declaring something like, "Let's make this the greatest war this world has ever seen." Big Mom grins while amplifying her stats by taking up more and more souls, and Whitebeard on the other hand tells Marco to pick up Ace whenever he sees the right opportunity. Whitebeard personally stops Akainu, and the warlords get busy with the Whitebeard commanders as well as the fleet crews. Mihawk is not sure what to do though. He thought it was just going to be Whitebeard. Kaido and Big Mom weren't a part of the agreement. Next, we have a great number of Big Mom pirates start popping up on the battlefield one after the other. It's not all of them because Big Mom still needed someone to look after the territory, but Katakuri, Cracker, and Smoothie are amongst the ones who suddenly emerge out of thin air. Now, I know what you're thinking. Kaido's arrival makes sense because he was planning on coming even in the original manga, but why is Big Mom there? And how did she manage to move her crew from the other side of the red line to here? You see, Big Mom's intelligence network had already informed her that Kaido was planning on participating in the war. She capitalized on this by getting in touch with Whitebeard and proposing an alliance to take down the Marines together. Whitebeard refused because all he wanted to do was save Ace, but Big Mom saw the opportunity to wipe out the Marines and decided to join anyway. The next question is about how they managed to appear on the battlefield all of a sudden. Well, I don't want to go into the specifics because this is more about the scale of the battle rather than how everyone got there. So let's just say thanks to Broly's mirror world ability. Everyone got inside her mirror world and she then infiltrated one of the Whitebeard ships back when they were all still in the new world. Of course, everyone is still out for their own interests. Kaido wants to make this the greatest war the world has ever seen. Whitebeard wants to save Ace, while Big Mom wants to destroy the Marines so that she can then take over the new world. As all of this is happening, Luffy and the gang land straight in the middle of the Marineford. In the manga, they were on a wave that got frozen by Aokiji's ice, but in this what if scenario, they just ride a random wave created by Whitebeard's Devil Fruit and ride it straight to Marineford. Luffy's entrance finally turns the tables on the Marines because while the Admirals, Garp, and Sengoku are trying to contain the three Emperors, Luffy is free to go and save Ace. A few Vice Admirals and a couple of Pacifista try to stop Luffy, but no problem because Hancock and Ivankov are with him. Kobe also braces himself to stop Luffy, but just then Marco comes flying in, picks up Luffy and takes him straight to the execution stand. The executioners are already passed out back when Kaido exploded his Conqueror's Haki all over the place, which is why it's just Ace now. Akainu sees as Luffy steps next to Ace, but Whitebeard punches him back to reality right away. Everything else is basically in limbo as Luffy and Marco try to figure out how to uncuff Ace. You'd think that either the 5 elders or the Holy Knights would decide to pull up, but one of the elders has to be physically there for him to summon the others, while the Holy Knights are obviously going to gather in Marihowa to protect the Celestial Dragons in case the war spreads to their homes. What about Imu though? He is the only one who actually has already seen a battle of this scale after all. You'd think he'd just smile and say something edgy like, "Let them destroy each other. When the dust settles, we will rebuild the world as we see fit." But nah, Imu knows more than anyone that Nika appears when it's time for the world to go through the great change. And yes, that was my best Emu impersonation because we don't really know how he sounds when it comes to English. But back to Emu, he's freaking out and fuming because there's no fuel to power the ancient weapon in his basement. But going back to the battle, Luffy notices Mr. 3 lying flat on the battlefield. He asks Marco to take him and Ace there, and once there, Mr. 3 makes a key out of his wax and voila, Ace has been freed. Sengoku is shaken, but even though he is struggling against a hunger-lusted Big Mom and her crew, he still orders Aokiji to leave him be and chase Luffy and Ace. But what do you know? The Blackbeard pirates finally arrive, and while they are taken aback by the scale of the battle, they also see opportunity. Aokiji can't just ignore them, so he stands in their way to keep them from messing up the battlefield any further. Kaido is still in a one-on-one with Garp. Unfortunately for Garp, the old man's fist continues to hesitate because deep down he can't shake off the feeling that he is on the wrong side. Soon, Kaido starts getting the better of him. Kizaru leaves Garp alone and blitzes straight to Luffy, but gets stopped by Marco and King. Luffy and Ace run to help Whitebeard after he falls to his knee because of a sudden heart attack. He collapses and starts coughing up blood. He knows that his time has come. Akainu sees the opportunity and decides to finish him off. Ace moves fast as a blaze and appears right between the two to protect the man he calls his father. But as fate would have it, Akainu sees yet another opportunity. While Ace thought that Akainu was going to kill Whitebeard, Akainu shifts his target, and right as everyone on the battlefield watches, Akainu's magma fist hits Luffy with enough intensity to completely knock him out. Seeing this, Ace Minds goes dark with rage. He lets out a powerful Conqueror's Haki and also becomes one with the flame. He awakens his Meta no Mi and hits Akainu with flames as hot as the sun itself. Luffy drops on the ground, his fate is unknown. Jinbei and Ivankov rush to check up on him. Whitebeard then overpowers his heart attack through sheer aura and grabs Akainu. He tells Ace to check up on his brother. Ace goes and holds Luffy and tells him to get up, but then it happens. A roar of Conqueror's Haki emerges from Luffy's unconscious body, followed by a rhythmic beat of drums. Luffy's body starts glowing white, his hair turns bright, and his eyes shine as he wakes up and starts laughing his ass off. You see, awakenings happen when Devil Fruit users' minds catch up to their powers. Of course, it's way too soon for Luffy to awaken his Devil Fruit, but presence of all 4 emperors and the strongest forces of the Marines create a unique situation where the world itself seems to demand change. In the original story, Luffy awakens but maintains his personality. But you see, this Luffy is not strong, which is why Nika's innate will overpowers Luffy's own personality, and what is born is not Monkey D. Luffy, but the sun god Nika himself. Whitebeard smiles because he knows the lore thanks to Roger. Nika goes wild all over the battlefield and just starts reeking of Conqueror's Haki. The 5 elders and Imu receive the update from CP0, who is also observing the battlefield. They now know that they have been had, and if the situation wasn't chaotic enough already, he arrives. It's Shanks and the red hair pirates. Shanks sees Nika and smiles. He knows that the X Factor he has been waiting for the past 2 decades has finally been born. As we know in the manga, Shanks stops the war, but what about here? He further escalates and also confronts his nemesis Blackbeard. In the manga, Mihawk left when Shanks arrived, but here he joins the side of the pirates. Sengoku is killed by Big Mom, which infuriates Garp and makes him attempt to attack Big Mom, but Kaido doesn't let him leave their fight. Nika takes on Kizaru and renders him unconscious. Awakened Ace and Whitebeard end up in a 2v1 against Akainu. Akainu decides to burn the whole place into the ocean because there's no way he's going to let the pirates have the last laugh, but joke's on him because Whitebeard was thinking the same exact thing. Whitebeard tells Ace to take his brother and leave with the rest of the Whitebeard pirates. He says this and uses the Gura Gura no Mi's power to send a powerful quake through the Marineford. The battlefield breaks apart completely and most of it starts sinking into the sea. There are many casualties as the Marines and the pirates try to flee to their ships. Garp gasps and loses his footing while Kaido transforms into a dragon and decides to fly straight to Marijoa because he no longer sees the same spark in Garp or Whitebeard as he once did. He decides to take on those who actually sit at the top of the world. Big Mom sees this and decides to follow him. Nika also jumps onto Kaido's back, and the same goes for a few others like Doflamingo and Crocodile. Ace gets on Marco and flies after them to bring back Luffy. The red hair pirates take down the Blackbeard pirates and send them into the ocean. Shanks sees them sinking and says to himself that they finally extinguished the one who embodied the dark side of piracy. Whitebeard takes Akainu with him to the grave in his final moments. This means that yes, Akainu also sinks into the sea. In a final desperate attempt, he uses his magma to burn the ocean to make some space, but it's too late. While the ocean does transform into a sea of hot burning magma, Akainu himself loses his life. The pirates and the Marines who fall into the sea at this point die immediately. Garp survives, but his body is burnt and he's completely out of strength. Aokiji saves him and Kizaru by freezing their bodies to keep them alive. Sengoku and Akainu are dead, most of the Vice Admirals are dead, and the Warlords are no longer on their side. As for the pirates, Whitebeard and Blackbeard are dead, or so everyone thought. You see, Shanks sunk them just like he sunk the Kid Pirates, however, Blackbeard wasn't done yet. He uses Black Vortex to suck in everything around him, including Whitebeard and Akainu's corpses. Just like that, Blackbeard gives himself both the Magu Magu no Mi and the Gura Gura no Mi. Meanwhile, Kaido, Big Mom, Doflamingo, Crocodile, Crocodile and Nika go up against the 5 Elders and the Holy Knights on Marijoa. Marijoa becomes the new battlefield and is completely destroyed. Nika becomes kind of like a god of destruction as he goes on a rampage and destroys the Holy Land. Ultimately, Nika exhausts himself and reverts back to an unconscious Luffy. This gives the Elders and Imu the perfect opportunity to kill Luffy, but then again, that would have been too easy. Ace swoops in on Marco, burns them all up with his awakened flames, picks up unconscious Luffy, and then immediately flies away. It is said that on this day, Kaido and Big Mom died after wreaking havoc in Marijoa. They killed almost all of the God Knights, including Figarland Garling. The only one to survive is Figarland Shamrock. As for the 5 Elders, they survived thanks to Imu's immortality. Vegapunk then decides to broadcast all that he had learned of the Void Century at this point and then joins the Revolutionary Army. Monkey D. Dragon rallies most of the nations and their people behind him. The Revolutionary Army basically takes over the first half of the Grand Line as well as the 4 Seas. The world government loses their power everywhere while Blackbeard schemes and takes over most of the New World. He absorbs the Beast Pirates, the Big Mom Pirates, Buggy, most of the Supernovas as well as many other big time pirates. But then 2 years later, Blackbeard finds a way to kill Imu and become the new king of the world. As for the Straw Hats, well, all the pirates align with Red Hair Shanks and Straw Hat Luffy to prepare for their comeback from Elbaf and Wano. The Straw Hats themselves train their hardest while Luffy trains his Haki and Devil Fruit powers until he finally achieves the true awakening, one that lets him maintain his own personality. And in the end, shortly after Blackbeard takes over, Luffy challenges him not as Nika but as Monkey D. Luffy. Whoever wins this battle will take all the other road poneglyphs and finally reach the One Piece. And there you go, guys. That was my thoughts on what would happen if all 4 emperors were to show up at Marineford. Yeah, I know, it's a very crazy one today, but I hope you guys enjoyed. If you guys want to see some more of these what if theories, or you guys have something in mind that you want to see specifically, comment it down below. I'll be looking at them to see what we do next here on the channel. Take it easy, and I'll catch you guys in the next one. Peace.